Hello, and welcome to another. You have to ask the question tonight. It's hard to begin. I wasn't planning on necessarily speaking about this. I'm not even sure I have any right to speak about this. However, I feel very deeply that I need to be comforted. Klal Yisrael needs to be comforted. We need Nechama. The past week's events caused all of Klal Yisrael to seek Nechama. I'm referring obviously to the incident in Meron, where many people lost their lives, and there's tragedy, and families are suffering, and Klal Yisrael suffering. However, I feel, as I look around and I see the classes being given and the Rabbanim giving Musar, and they're talking about why or what, and I hear the people talking in the street around me, how did this happen? Why did this happen? I feel that they're not asking the right question. And the first and foremost question is, what is Nechama? What is comfort? We say we visit somebody sitting Shiva, we say, Hamakom Yenachem Eschem Betok Shar Abei Lesion Yerushalayim. That Hamakom, which is one of the names of a God, of Hashem, Hamakom, the place, right, should comfort you among the mourners of Zion and Yerushalayim. Why we refer to Eretz Yisrael or Klal Yisrael as Sion here, opposed to saying Yisrael, and what specifically Yerushalayim has to it. The mourners of Yerushalayim could be maybe expressed by a very famous incident, and with that we may have an insight into what is Nechama, what is comfort. The Gemara in Makos, it's also brought, I believe, in the Medrash. Also, Gemara in Makos talks about Rebbe Akiva and his cohort and some of the other Tanaim, that they were going together on the way. And there's two stories. Basically seems to be the same story, the same type of incident, and which it begs the first question: why do you need two different stories to illustrate the same point? And what's really the difference between the 2 points? And really, what is Rebbe Akiva's points? Many of us heard this, that once Rebbe Gamliel, Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, Rebbe Yeshua, and Rebbe Akiva were traveling on the road. And this was after the Chorban Bayis. And they heard the sounds of the Roman crowds in the plazas, and the number was, and they were joyous and singing and partying and reveling and all that. And the 3 Tanaim with Rebbe Akiva began to cry. Rebbe Akiva began to laugh. And as they looked at Rebbe Akiva astonished, they said, why are you laughing? He looked at them, they looked at him and said, he looked at them, and said, why are you crying? Typical. We answer a question with a question. He goes on to explain, they go on and tell him that these people who defy Hashem's will, and that they cause destruction, and they burnt down the house of Hashem, are living in comfort, and are getting their needs taken care of, and we shouldn't cry. And us who are, and Hashem's house is burnt, and we don't have the Beis Hamikdash, we shouldn't cry. So that's the reason why I'm laughing, because we all know there's a Talmudic dictum. These people who defy Hashem's will are getting such rewards in this world, and getting their needs taken care of. How much more so is it going to be the people who honor Hashem's will, do the mitzvahs, keep the Torah? Gemara goes on. Right. They say the second case, a second situation, where they reached Yerushalayim and they saw the city plowed under. They saw the Makom Mikdash, the place of the Beis Hamikdash, and it was desolated. And they even saw foxes running out of the area where the Kodesh HaKadoshim were, where the holies of holies were there. And these three colleagues of Rebbe Akiva began to cry again. At this point, Rebbe Akiva also started to laugh. And the similar exchange, why are you crying? Why are you laughing? Why are you crying? And they said, this place where a Kohen Gadol had to go, only was allowed to go one day a year in perfect sanctity and perfect purity, and or else he would die. And now foxes, animals, it's totally profaned, and we shouldn't cry. And Rebbe Akiva says, that's why I'm laughing. As he says, there's a connection between, he brings a pasuk between the connection between Uriah HaKohen and Zechariah, two prophets that actually lived in different times, and the Gemara asks that they're tied together, their prophecies are tied together. So how can the prophecies be tied together? They didn't live in the same time. So he said they prophesied the Korban, the destruction during the first temple, and everything that will happen, and all the destruction. And the other one prophesies of what's going to happen when Hashem finally brings the Geula. And Rebbe Akiva says, just like I see the prophecy of fulfilled of Uriah, that the Yerushalayim is going to be plowed over, it's going to be like an empty field where scavenger animals rummage to find food. Till I saw that was done, and not only done, but done according to exactly the way the Navi expected it, reported it, illustrated it. I know that the prophecies of Zechariah, of that Yerushalayim be rebuilt, and that old men will be sitting in the streets, and children will be dancing, and all the Geula will come to be in its full fruition. And with that, the Gemara ends that they turned to Rebbe Akiva and said, Akiva nechmatanu, Akiva nechmatanu. Akiva, you comforted us. Akiva, you comforted us. So, as I mentioned earlier, why are there two stories here? What's the difference between the two stories? They seem to be saying a similar message. And in the first story, they don't respond that you gave us comfort, right? But in the second story, they ended off by saying you gave us comfort. How is this comfort? In the first story, it didn't react as an act of comforting. Over here, it reacted a reaction of them that they were comforted. And to look into this, we may need to examine what was really going on over here. When a person goes through a tragedy, when people go through a tragedy, when an event comes, our worlds become small. If you look in Eicha, there's many examples how they talk about your world becoming small. When people suffer a tragedy, they're focused. They can't think about anything else except for what happened to them. The loss, the tragedy, the trauma of it. The world becomes small. Even the period of the 3 weeks are called Bein HaMitzorim, between the straits, between the narrow, compressing straits. When that's what happens when our world focus becomes very small, very minute, and we start lashing out and asking, why, how, Eicha, Haisa, how could the Yerushalayim happen? How can this happen? The first reactions this last week, we were saying, how did it happen? What happened? Who was at fault? Those are the questions that they were asking, and they're not because the world was chaotic. It didn't make any sense. It doesn't have any rhyme or reason. And we can't have a world without rhyme or reason. We can't live in that kind of world. How can we function? How can we survive when there's chaos? Rebbe Akiva was telling them the following thing. He was showing them that it's not chaotic. You see, in this example, the second example primarily, you see that the words of Hashem came true. Was done exactly what was supposed to happen. And that means Hashem was running the show. He was controlling these things to make the events happen in the way that they did. Why? For our benefit. To get the most out of us. To get us going to where we're supposed to be. Which means we're on that path right now. So he was waiting, Rebbe Akiva, until he saw it to know that we're on that path. He wasn't sure when it would begin. He didn't know if we're continuing to have more. But when he saw this, the fulfillment of the prophecy, he laughed and he realized that right now is the beginning of the Geula. This moment, we understood that Hashem is running the world and he's going to continue to run the world. We don't necessarily need to know why. This is not the time to ask why or how. Of course, people need to be accountable. I'm not minimizing responsibility. I'm not minimizing our human actions that we have to strive to be better. There's time for that. But this is a time for comfort. This is a time to understand that Hashem is running the world. Again, this may get me in a lot of trouble. But almost 90% of the things that happened could have happened without any tragedy happening, because for many years people were claiming these safeties weren't in place and things didn't go wrong. And this year something happened and everything came together to a point where we lost so many precious neshamas. It means that to understand that there's a hashgacha here, that Hashem is watching out for each and every one, and everything is happening a way He's supposed to. And that's why we use the word Hamakom. The name of Hashem over here is not the Hashem of mercy or the Hashem Elokim, which is the God of judgment. The aspects of that, it's the God of everything, of all. Hamakom. There's no boundaries. Everything is one place. It's His place. Everybody's attached to Him. Every neshama is attached to Hashem. Therefore, there's no separation between anybody. We just don't see it. We don't feel it. We're separated because we're limited. But we know that it's there. It exists. Those bonds are there. We need this comfort. That's what Rebbe Akiva was saying. And if you notice, when we go to a Shiva house, when we deal with people, we encourage them to talk about the person who passed. We start asking them questions once they start and engaging them to let them talk about not only the recent trauma, but their entire lives. And many of us have had this experience, and we've heard amazing stories about people. We've had amazing hashgacha practices about people, situations in their lives, and that's what's giving them more comfort. When they start seeing that there is something beyond themselves, they don't need to know why this happened now. Of course they're going to miss the person. Of course they feel the loss. Of course they're going to mourn. That's mourning. That's different. That's grieving for something that we don't have. For the feeling that somebody missed an opportunity that they didn't grow up to experience, that you didn't get to see them, or that they didn't get to see you. When a child loses a parent, they didn't get to see you get married. And when a parent, chas v'shalom, in many cases like this, or siblings lost their siblings, they didn't get the opportunity to experience and do the things in this world that we feel will bring us closer to Hashem. They didn't have those opportunities. We understand that, and that is a loss. And the things that they brought into this world, we now have a responsibility to bring them out. Everybody here has a special place. Everybody here was created to bring something, Megala, the Kavod Shemayim, somehow. And whatever those lessons are that this person, however long or short that they were here, it's our job to bring it forward, to tell those stories, to understand, and to do that and get comfort, to know that this is still all part of Hamakam Yenachem Espen. We need this comfort now. The time to asking questions will come. The time to try to understand and how to improve ourselves will come. But right now is to understand the hashgacha, and it may encounter talking about the incident to how everything came together to cause the tragedy itself, and that may bring somebody comfort because it shouldn't have happened. It couldn't have happened. It didn't happen the year before, or 2 years, or 3 years, or 4 years. It didn't happen. Why not? And why did it happen this year? That's time. But to know that there is a reason, to know that there's somebody running the show. That way it gives us a chance to have our world expand. to have our chance to grieve, to process the loss, to figure out where do we go from here, what do we have to do. That's the time. But the first step is to seek comfort. We hamakam yinachem eskan b'to shar avele Sion v'Yushalayim. Among this, because all these tragedies all tie together. It all ties together is the fact that we weren't we are avele Sion Yerushalayim. We are all avele Sion Yerushalayim. And what they say is those who aren't part of avele Sion Yerushalayim won't be zocher to see the geula. Being part of the avelis, being part of the understanding and realizing the loss is part of the geula process itself. I wish for everyone, and especially the families, the people who are suffering the most in a way. This is not, I don't want to minimize their loss. I don't want to minimize our loss. And no, we should never know for such tragedies. The Chas v'Shalom should never come upon us. It shouldn't come on anyone ever again. We should find true comfort and understand and accept that Hashem is running the world. We see it every day. We have to just open our eyes. When you hear the stories, and there are going to be stories that are going to be coming out about this incident. There's going to be stories that are coming about how this one got there and they should have been there. He was right next to this person. He was 5 minutes away. He was there and on the other side because he went to the bathroom. There's going to be hashgacha practices that he didn't even want to go to the bathroom, but his friend had to go to the bathroom and the friend didn't want to be by himself. I don't know what the stories are, but you're going to see these stories. They're going to come out. They're going to hear them. It doesn't minimize the loss. Beautiful neshamas were lost. People who were going to send them. And the last point, I know I've gone very long on this, more than I normally do on a video. Why are we feeling this like that? There's been tragedies. There's been terrible tragedies. A bus has fallen up in Ariel, and this terrorist attack, and this family's, and it was terrible and gut-wrenching and all that. But what struck me, the reason why I'm speaking, I feel I'm speaking about this, I wanted to say something, is that I felt I needed comfort. Lag BaOmer is a special day for us, tied to a different aspect of the hashgacha practice. We feel in a certain way that we lost Lag BaOmer this year. Not that we lost this year, it's been tainted for all years. Right now we feel that it's been tainted for all years. Because all of us have memories of Lag BaOmer, of being a day of such joy and change. There's stories, I'm sure people have stories of doing things on Lag BaOmer with their family, with their schools, with their things. In my family we have a tradition that my children would always call their grandfather because he had a special story on Lag BaOmer. On Lag BaOmer, no matter where they were, they would have to call Grandpa and listen to that story. And then, that was somewhat taken away from us, and we have that loss as well. That this day has been changed. But Hamakam Yinach, we realize the Hashgachas Hashem, not today necessarily, not necessarily tomorrow. We will one day be zocher to see the Yeshua and the Geula, and we should now take comfort and be able to rebuild. Thank you for letting me share.